everyone, and welcome to another episode of Books and Shit with me, Charlie Author. Now, today is another very special episode because we have a guest, and this guest is the wonderful best-selling author, Elodie Harper. Hello, how are you?
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me on. Been really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no. It's been a quick turnaround in to get together kind of thing. But thank you so much for featuring on the episode, first of all. Just so you guys know, Elodie and I have just had a really interesting conversation about fantasy books and stuff. And it was just really, really fun. And I can tell you already, we're besties. She's just my best friend. It's fine.
It's very true.
So we're friends now, okay? But no, thank you again for featuring. Now, before we go straight into like the questions and about you and your background and stuff, I wanted to just tell a little story of how we met, essentially. So I reviewed The Wolf Den on my page, right? And a lot of people feel funny about reviews. If it's bad, they don't want to say anything. If it's great, they don't tag people, should I say. They just don't want to let the person know what they thought. It's that anonymity, you're able to just hide behind your words if you're being cruel, that kind of thing. But I initially gave The Wolf Den, I think it was 3.5 out of 5, right? And the reason for this, as much as I thoroughly enjoyed it, was because I didn't realize it was a trilogy or was going to be a trilogy, right? So I thought, oh, I'm left with all these questions and I don't know what's going on in this like standalone book, right? Here comes Elodie and says, girl, this is
no shame.
Yeah, no shame in her game, and said, nah, mate, this is 3 books, it's not finished, right? So I was like, oh, that makes more sense. And then we bumped it up stars because I honestly, I left it loving it, wanting more.
Basically embarrassed you into bumping up a star. Sorry, this sounds terrible. Like I cruised in there. I was like, hey, it's not finished.
No, not even, but that's the thing, because I've always made an argument for being honest about books, kind of thing. And there is a line between being disrespectful and rude and to people's work. Being a writer myself, I know what work and energy and time has gone into something, and at no point have I ever just wanted to trash something and just put it out there and be like, look at this, I hate you, kind of thing. It's not about that. It's about being honest and reviewing and letting the world know what you thought was good or bad.
Yeah,
so I love that, because you are the author and you did see it and you did make comment on it, and everyone, that would, for most people, be the most traumatizing thing that ever happened to them. But I loved it. And
I think I did stick some kisses on the end to make it sure I wasn't being like
no, that's it. I really appreciate it. And
I just felt really bad as well that you had these unanswered questions, and that you'd said, oh, I really enjoyed the book, and then I was like, what's going to happen next? And I don't know. So I was just like, I promise you'll find out.
that was absolutely amazing. So I really appreciate that honesty and getting in the comments, and just that transparency with readers and stuff. I really, really enjoyed. So I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and basically say, tell us about The Wolf Den, first of all, and its conception. We know about your research in Pompeii and all that wonderful stuff. So let's just go straight into it, and then we'll see where we go.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting that there's quite a big crossover with fantasy fans and historical fiction fans with The Wolf Den, particularly because with ancient history, it is almost like fantasy as a genre, because it's so long ago, and like the world building and everything else, it's like a completely sort of different immersive experience. But it is actually based, so Wolf Den means brothel or wolf den in Latin. So the word lupana, it has both meanings. That's where the title comes from, and it's based on a real building in Pompeii. You can still see the graffiti that the women left. I based some of the characters on that. And basically what I wanted to do, because it's quite famous on the tourist trail, was reimagine this place, but from the women's perspective, and about their adventures, their lives, their hopes, their dreams. So that's where it comes from. And the main character, Amara, is determined to win her freedom, but it is also a book about all these different women's and their different lives and how they've got to this place, and kind of what they do with it. So it's like an adventure story. It's very much about Pompeii, and yeah, so that's how it goes. And it's a trilogy. So we've gone on about that, sorry. So the Wolf Den came out last year, and this year the sequel, The House of the Golden Doors, coming out.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to try and keep it relatively spoiler free, because it hasn't been out too long, so there's still some people
it's not. Yeah,
catching up with TBRs and things like that. But for those who have read it, and I'm talking about my close-knit friendship group, this is fan central for us, which was really, really good. But no, what we loved, I say primarily, but one of the huge things we loved about Wolf Den was, like you said, these stories of the women. Okay, we loved Amara and Victoria as big features, going through such traumatizing situations, lives. And it's like prostitution itself, the oldest occupation, all that kind of thing. It's not new, but I think what we took from it, bear with me, what we took from it was that as much as it was happening and it was in the forefront and we understood what these women were doing, what they were made to do, should I say, it towed a really wonderful line of not being too graphic or in your face, but being 100% emotional. So, and it proved the strength of writing, and your writing specifically, about how you can still shock factor someone, for example, Paris, the male prostitute, without it being this kind of clickbaity type books that we have floating around. We all know sex sells in that sense, and trauma and dark fantasy and all those kind of things people do quite gravitate to. But like I said, one thing that was wonderful about this is we cried, we felt like, like all these different things, and you didn't have to have the gore part. It was implied, it was understood, it was wonderful. And like,
thank you so much, Charlie.
Yeah, I hate to put the two things together, wonderful about such intimate content, but it was like, you don't have to be so graphic in order to
that was a really big aim of mine. I did not want any graphic descriptions of particularly non-consensual sex. I don't want to read that, I don't want to write it. It was all, as you say, about the emotion, the psychological impact, and I kind of wanted to focus. We know this is happening to the women and to Paris, as you say, but I wanted to sort of focus on all the other aspects of their lives. And obviously that trauma does bleed into other aspects, but I just didn't want to write a kind of misery fest of horrible things happening to women, which I don't like to read. So yeah, thank you for saying that.
No, definitely. I mean, one of the big things we discussed as well is, once again, bear with me, guys, I like to be as transparent as possible. Non-consensual sex, obviously, between men and women, it's the biology, it's kind of where it's supposed to go, if that makes sense. But with Paris, there was this extra kind of because he's a man, and it was just like, and his anger towards the other girls was, as I said, part of that psychological makeup kind of thing, because from what I understand, he's not particularly gay, homosexual.
No, well, this is what I wanted to portray with Paris. So like sexual abuse of enslaved people in the Roman Empire, it was against men and women. Exactly. But the thing for Paris is that he's so isolated because he doesn't want to associate with the women, because he feels like demeaned by that, because they were a very sexist society. And so he can't kind of hang out with them, but equally he's not accepted as a man. And he's just very isolated. And I could have made him very sort of victim-y and sorrowful, but I made him quite obnoxious because I just wanted to show that people can be quite complex in difficult situations, and actually sometimes if you have a really hard life, it doesn't make you a sweetheart. So that's kind of where Paris is at. Yeah,
so we definitely appreciated that. And obviously his relationship with his mother, sorry, I forget.
Fabia.
Forget her name. But his relationship, and just being obviously really resentful for the situation he's in. And then obviously moving to the kind of the other side of that relationship, I didn't expect Felix to be, sorry, not a spoiler, guys, but I didn't expect Felix to use those services. And it's like, I get that it's a part of ancient culture, like we just know that in the Roman and Greek times, to have you know, these types of sexual relationships with any gender, any person, was completely standard. But I didn't expect it of Felix, and even that was quite shocking. It was just like, yeah, so you genuinely just see him as this thing to be used just at any time, and it was just so, yeah.
I mean, and Felix is such an abusive person as well, so it's as much about power as desire, I think, with Felix.
Exactly.
It's about kind of asserting his dominance as much as anything else, I think.
As much as anything else, exactly. Sorry, I recently had an episode, I say recently, it was the one before this, about villains. And Felix is, once again, I hate putting bad words with good words, but he's a wonderful villain. You know, he's a really good one in the sense of, you know, yes, it's all the psychological, mental, and physical abuse. But with I won't spoiler this one, but with his relationship with one of the girls, that was made so apparent because you understood in some ways why she felt that way or thought he would be different to her. There's always one. In every film, in every book, there's always one, and you're just like, girl, he don't love you. Like, you know, he don't love you. You know, it's not real. You know, snap out of it, okay? But I really loved, once again, that dynamic. So you've got Amara, the rebellious one. I'm not staying here. I do what I need to do. I'm out ski. Then you've got obviously this girl who's like, kind of like it here, you know, like, you know, because I'm different, I'm special. The different dynamics of the girls was just really wonderfully told, and I thought that was amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
No, on that trajectory, was there anything you edited out of the book that might have been a bit too, I guess, graphic? Not necessarily physically, but, you know, just a bit too graphic, a bit too much? You thought it was? Ooh.
Well, I actually kind of went through that process before even writing it. So one of the concerns I had with my editor was, you know, like, I just wanted to avoid that. So even as I sort of planned it, I worked out how many scenes of that nature there'd be, and that none of them would be described explicitly, you know, so we're not going to have any body parts or actual sort of explicit descriptions of sexual activity. But, you know, even a kind of really obscure reference or a very metaphorical or psychological reference, it's still quite disturbing. So yeah, I tried to sort of limit the number.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just sort of going back to Felix, it's interesting what you say about him as a villain, because I wanted to make him more than a monster. That was really crucial to me, that over the course of the book, we really come to understand him and his life. And I don't want to spoiler it, but his background, his life, why he is who he is. And I also wanted to throw a curveball in there and make him incredibly attractive, because that also complicates how people respond to someone.
Oh gosh, yeah. You mentioned that earlier.
And I have to say, not the peroxide hair, because obviously he's from southern Italy, so he's dark. But I must say, I did sort of occasionally visualize him as Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh yeah, okay, I can do it. I see it.
Yeah. So anyway, I just had to throw that out there as we were talking about fantasy earlier.
Yeah, we were. No, I get that. I mean, you say obviously you wanted to not have him just be this monster, but you know, what was the most difficult, or who was, sorry, the most difficult character to write in that aspect, in terms of giving them layers and not just being one-dimensional and that kind of thing?
It probably was Felix, in all honesty. And you know, because I wanted to do a really fine line between perhaps the reader having, if not sympathy, then understanding for him, but also not the narrative of, I didn't want it to be the narrative of the woman saving the bad man, because I just think that's so toxic. You know, so yeah, so he was probably the most complicated character to write. Rufus was very complex to write as well.
Oh, right.
Because
go on to him.
Because he's kind of, and I don't want to spoiler it too much, but there are times, so Rufus and Pliny in particular, without kind of giving away too much about who they are, what they do, but there should be a gap between how Amara sees them and how the reader sees them.
Yes, okay.
So like, yeah, her attitude to both those characters isn't necessarily the attitude that I would want the reader to have.
Okay.
So you know, like maybe we can see them with slightly less rose tinted glasses.
I think I most
yeah,
definitely. Like,
yeah, because it's her feelings are partly born out of desperation.
yes, exactly.
And whereas we can be like, oh, that wasn't so great.
No, we get it. It's, you know, it's literally this third, it sounds silly because that's what a book is, but it's essentially us looking into this life and being like, run, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
See that this is not going well. And, you know, as I said, she's almost hiding from those red flags as such because
well, because she doesn't have a choice, really. She's got to make it work. But it's, and I guess that's what all of us do. And and I wanted to look at the kind of pretty woman trope of like the sex worker or prostitute who's rescued by the rich man, and what that actually means.
Favorite film. Love it.
I do quite, you know, we can all enjoy Pretty Woman. Like it is really good fun, and it's a great fantasy, but I wanted to look at that story from a slightly different,
more sinister.
I mean, you know, I would love to have some guy just hand me a credit card and I just go into some shop and look really hot. That would be great.
Who wouldn't? I mean,
you know, I'm not dissing the fantasy, but I just I was looking at it slightly different.
No, I definitely get there. And you know, just taking that type of relationship from a more realistic and obviously in this case sinister, I guess, perspective, which is very interesting, because we were talking earlier about toxic relationships and toxic traits between, you know, centuries old guys and, you know, 20-year-old females kind of thing. And that's not always that's not ever the way it goes. So yeah, having from this perspective is just so much more real. And I know it's obviously historical, but I feel like you've done such a great service to the lives of people of that time. And I loved the I guess it's like a bonus excerpt thing at the back. And
for the Waterstones edition, the
one I have, and it was nice reading that little essay, you know, just about your travels and those kind of things. That will segue me on nicely to, when did you actually go to Pompeii? When was the birth?
I did actually go as part of the research process. Rather than, it wasn't like I kind of walked into the brothel in Pompeii and had an epiphany, though that would probably make quite a good origin story. So yeah, I kind of had the idea that I wanted to write about Pompeii, and you know, I kind of got this idea in my head, and I went with my best friend Andrea for a short like mini break, and so that's but I'd already read a lot about it, and there's like masses of pictures of it online, and you know, and having studied like the ancient world for quite a while, it was sort of familiar to me before I went, but I have to say nothing really prepared me for the experience of actually going there. It's like a really, it's a very, it's a really weird place. The brothel itself, like it's quite a sad place. Like it's quite grim, but it's also beautiful. It's got these frescoes. It's very interesting. I don't know. It's quite poignant to think of the women there, you know, it's so well preserved, you can really see what it looks like. And Pompeii, you know, as a whole is just extraordinary, you know, it's like the nearest you can ever get to time travel. Oh, you'd love it, honestly. It's brilliant.
COVID has just ruined
my life. I was meant to go back for book 2 and like that didn't happen.
It happened. No, sorry, so what year was this? Because this was actually a question, sorry I didn't say that earlier. It was taken from Betwixt the Pages. So when was the first time? So what year was that?
2019.
Oh, 2019. Oh, so fairly recently, which is cool. And then they also asked, what is your favorite period in history? Because you did study ancient history, didn't you?
Well, I studied English, but I did a lot of like ancient texts. I studied literature, but like studied a lot of ancient texts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sorry, I've just forgotten the question. I'm such a
favorite.
My favorite period of history. So it would be this one, so ancient Rome, and then probably like I find the French Revolution period really interesting, and then like it's such a cliche, but I do like Renaissance, Tudor.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Period, you know, I do like it. I think so, but the ancient world is kind of my favorite. I just find it very interesting. It's so modern and yet so alien at the same time. I think it's quite unique for that. You know, they were so advanced in so many ways, and yet so completely alien to us and others. So
yeah, no, it's, as you said, that it's just nail on the head in the sense of so far advanced in terms of, I don't know, maths or writing or
technology,
you know,
exactly,
that kind of thing. But then you know, I've got a god with a crocodile head, I don't know. It's just it's all a bit over the place, which I do appreciate. Would you write in, you know, in the future, would you write any other periods, obviously, of the ones that you love, Tudor, you know, a la Philippa Gregory, you know?
I mean, she's kind of cornered that market quite quite amazingly. I've never say never. I'm quite keen on sticking with the ancient world for the foreseeable, but I mean, like, if I'm lucky enough to write several more books in the ancient world, maybe at some point I will want to switch somewhere else. So
no, I mean, I like that idea. Obviously, that's good for me to hear as a fan, because, like I said, me and my friend, we really took to your writing style, in the sense of you can have historical romance or just historical fiction, whichever one it is, and it does get a bit overwhelming. It is a bit of information kind of thing, but I feel like you weave that together really well in terms of learning something, the emotional aspect, and obviously just pure enjoyment of, oh my god, I have to turn the next page. So that was just a good mesh for us, kind of thing. Another cheeky little segue. You mentioned, you know, being lucky enough, you know, to write more books if you are. So we're going to go into the kind of publishing-y questions now, because as I mentioned, a lot of my readers are indie writers and, you know, up and coming, and we want to make it, you know. So yeah, what was your path to getting The Wolf Den picked up, published, etc., etc.? Tell us all. What's the inside scoop, darling?
So I've got to be honest, like, it was really my agent and getting a good agent as to why this has happened for me. So and The Wolf Den is my historical fiction debut, but it's not my first book. So when well, it was 2016, I'd written a book that was a kind of gothic-y ghost story, with some sort of ancient Greek myth overtones, and I sent it to Juliet Mushens, who's my agent, who's fabulous, and she took me on the basis of that book, and then it was signed as a crime book, so I had to slightly rewrite it because there was quite a lot of crime elements to it. So then I wrote 2 crime books, and really enjoyed it, but it wasn't kind of my genre, and I didn't really want to be writing more books in that genre. And
go on kind of thing.
And it just didn't sort of grab me the same way, and I thought I'm going to struggle to kind of go down this path. Now, a lot of agents wouldn't necessarily be very supportive of that, but Juliet is like all about reinvention and about, you know, you're as good as your next book and all of that. So so then, you know, she really liked the idea of The Wolf Den, and we pitched that. Well, she pitched that, and that's kind of how it happened.
So what was
sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, what's the timeline like? Because, you know, you have the horror stories of, oh my God, it took me 10 years to find an agent. And then I found one. And then my book was shelved for another 5. And then I didn't see it for another 2. And then this, you know, what was your particular journey like in terms of time and years and editing, blah, 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 blah.
I've got to be honest, it was really fast. So the main thing has been time pressure, that whenever these things have had a green light, then it's been like, oh my God, it's needed to be done yesterday. So and with signing with Juliet, I was really shocked and delighted that she signed me. She was my, you know, I sound like one of these really awful, annoying people, because she was my first choice agent. I queried her and she said yes. But you know, I was really lucky, and I know it doesn't always happen like that. And I've got one friend in particular who's a massively talented writer, and I love her stuff, and she's not been signed yet. And it is really subjective writing, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. You know, people like The Wolf Den I feel really grateful it's taken off. My crime books didn't particularly. I mean, they were fine, and I was thrilled to have them published. but did not get anything like the response of The Wolf Den.
Yeah.
So it's I think Juliet's idea that you just you focus on the next book, and you keep going, and you can always reinvent yourself as a writer.
I think it's well, as you've just said, it's always about finding your niche and your market. As you said, you wrote the crime books beforehand, but they didn't necessarily take off in the way you may have hoped, wished, whatever the word is.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that wasn't even necessarily the books you wanted to write, so maybe that's the blessing in disguise kind of thing.
You honestly could look at it like that, and it also was useful because in pitching The Wolf Den to Head of Zeus, the publisher, they knew I was capable of writing decent books, so it wasn't like a wasted, and I'm still thrilled they were published, and
there's no failure, I don't think, there's only
honestly just finishing a draft is hugely difficult, even if it's never published. It's just such a big thing.
It's huge. I mean, I've got a friend at the minute, she's writing fantasy, I think it is, but she wants to write historical fiction. She wants to write historical romance because she's kind of stuck on her manuscript, I think she was saying, and it's just like, it's because my brain keeps going to this other book that's just sitting waiting for me. And it was just like, if that's what you want, babes, that's what you want. Like, you force yourself to be in a mindset that isn't what you want, or else the writing will become a chore. And I've always tried to veer away from that. And I think one of my fears for being traditionally published, if that ever happened for me, is suddenly this idea of, like you said, the deadline's yesterday, but I don't feel like writing today. That's what we've got so far as indies. Like, I'll do this when I want, like I'll release it when I want, but suddenly there's other people in your head, and they want it then, and it has to be by this time, and I'm just like, I'm not in the mood, don't want to.
Like, I have to say, for me, like, I kind of need that, and I think that's because of my background as a journalist, where it's like so many deadlines, and also like I've always had people interfering with what I'm writing, like just like a report, you've got your news editor reading it and might be like, oh no, don't like that line, or you should put this bit here, or whatever. So I guess for me it's very familiar that writing would be both a collaborative process and also one that has to be done quite fast, even if you're not completely satisfied with it. But I think if I hadn't had that sort of background, I would struggle with it a lot more, because you're never totally satisfied with anything you write. It's never perfect. You could always like carry on polishing it, but at some point you have to say, okay, this is done. And if you've got an outside person saying, okay, it has to be done now, then you're kind of like, okay, well, it's done then.
Exactly. You have to let it go at some point. I've got another friend, I won't say her name, but it's just like, she's, I wouldn't say perfectionist, but she's, like you said, it's, she keeps reading it over and she keeps changing it and stuff like that. And, we've said to her, like, you just have to let it go at some point. It's never going to be what you think is perfect. I'm sure it's wonderful. You just have to trust that instinct and put that out there. I mean, saying that, as I said, you come from a journalistic background, and you've always had people, kind of invested in your writing. What would you say is, well, age-old question, what's advice for upcoming writers, things to avoid, whether it's contracts, things you want to hear, things you don't want to hear? If somebody says this percentage to you, that's not the one, or what are some tips you could give to somebody if they're in that path?
So I'm hoping I'm not going to give people bad advice here, but I mean, some main things is never ever give money either to an agent or to be published. An agent will take, definitely, that's a really, really big deal. Do not pay anyone to read your work, to represent you, to publish you. You should not be paying money out. I mean, there are occasions that you might want to use a kind of proofreading editing service. If you feel you would really benefit from that, I think there are some reputable ones. Obviously, there are reputable ones. So I'm not saying in no circumstances ever pay, but definitely
you shouldn't be paying them, if that makes
sense. And exactly. And also, like, definitely never pay an agent or a publisher. That's just like a big no ever. If either of those are asking you for money, that's like a massive red flag. And then so as far as I know, the standard sort of agent fee is about 15%. Anything over 15% is peculiar. Okay. So double I feel like I need to double check that. But I think you go to like Society of Authors, and they will have like loads of information on this kind of stuff. So
well, that's good.
Into it. Yeah, I think you can check the percent, and there's like an agent's, not trade union, but like a kind of official body. So Society of Agents or something. I'm sounding really ignorant here, but yeah.
No, so, in my like writers and artists yearbook or something.
Yeah, exactly. That you can go for better people than me for advice, but yeah.
No, it's good to know. We always just like to get that kind of insight. I mean, author Shelby Mahurin, she wrote the Serpent and Dove trilogy. She was talking on her stories about like advances and how everybody's different, but just advances and how she gets paid and how other people don't. And it's just one of those things, without being too intrusive or disrespectful to people's situations. You won't know unless you ask, and you won't know unless you get it. So if someone was to offer you X, is this okay? Like, how else are you going to be educated if you don't ask the question? So thank you very much, obviously, for sharing that with us. Going back a couple of steps, so you said the journey was quite fast in terms of pitching Wolf Den coming out. How has it been for Les sequel? So House of the Golden Door is out in May, or With the Golden Door is out in May. I'm so excited. What's been that journey into, when did you start writing it? When do they ask for it? What's going on?
So I kind of signed up to do a book a year. For the trilogy, so people won't have to wait too long. Wow. So I started writing The House with the Golden Door pretty much as soon as I delivered The Wolf Den. So I'd written quite a lot of it before The Wolf Den was even published. And I'm writing the third book at the moment.
Oh no, that's really good. So where is Golden Door now? So obviously it's coming out in May.
That's coming out in May. So at the moment it's had one proof run. So they've done like a printed version to send out to reviewers. They're doing another proof run, which has been kind of corrected more, because the early proof run was like as soon as I finished the draft. And then we went through like the copy edit when it's like proofread by different people in the publishing house, just to like check the punctuation and all this kind of stuff. And so more will be printed, and that will go out for like bloggers and booksellers and other authors to read. I will definitely be asking for you. 100%.
Yeah, if I can have one, I'd love one, because I love it. Thank you. But so proof runs,
so proof run, and it's also up on NetGalley. Some people like get a digital and apply for a digital ARC. So that's where it's at the moment, and then out in May. So I don't know how big their proof run is. But I think that's like the end of this month, beginning of next month.
Okay, no, that sounds good. I said May is what, 4 months away.
Oh my god!
I know. May is 4 months away. Like, my baby is in 2 months. It's terrifying. It's just terrifying stuff. But no, it's good to know, as I said, that kind of trajectory or the journey of where it's going.
And so many congratulations, by the way. It is wonderful.
Oh no, thank you. I am looking forward to it. Gonna miss out on hours of reading, but we'll see how that goes.
You know what? If you're breastfeeding, I don't think I ever read as many books as in the middle of the night when I was having to breastfeed. So
I see that. I'm just like, I keep saying to her dad, like, you just need to take her, because I need to concentrate. I just can't. But no, that's really good. So House with the Golden Door is out in May, and obviously we are continuing. So we're going back to the book now, because that's the fun part. Excuse me. So we're going back obviously to Amara's story. Won't spoiler it, but for those that have read it, we're on tenderhooks with the guy and the house, and just what can we expect? Because I am so excited, and I promise you, this isn't just because obviously we're speaking. this was one of my favorite books of last year, and to know that there is, you know, more coming, and it was, as I said, initially left on a cliffhanger that I thought I wasn't gonna get resolution over. This is just, it's blowing my mind. I'm just really excited. So what can we expect, obviously, for Amara and her journey, at least in this book, because obviously there's more to go?
So I think, without being too spoilery, like, I didn't want this book to have as dark a vibe.
Okay.
So I hope there'll be more escapism and lightness in this book. Having said that, it's still pretty dark.
Okay. As you said that, though, it's got me thinking about her little man friend.
Well,
yeah, that makes
I'm not going to give any. Well, you may be disappointed. You may not be disappointed. I can't give too much away, but yeah,
love it.
It's a different environment from the first book, and maybe she's learning to have different priorities as well.
Okay.
So,
right. So that's what we're looking forward to with Amara. Do you have any? Well, of course you've got plans because you're writing them. But do you have any ideas or plans for the title of book 3?
Do you know what? I'm like really stuck with the title of book 3 at the moment. I've got a few that I quite like, and I'm just, I haven't decided. So the Wolf Den and the House with the Golden Door were like instant. I knew what they were going to be called.
Okay.
But the third one's always been a bit trickier for me.
A bit trickier.
Where,
I'll keep my ears to the ground, so we can wait. We can wait for that. But no, I will not take up too much of your time, Elodie. I do just want to say thank you so much again for featuring on Books and Shit. I know my friends and listeners and readers are just going to just love this so much, because you've just been such a joy to speak to, and I'm just all gushy.
Oh, thank you so much. You've been so lovely. I know it was so much fun. Our chat earlier as well.
It's like once we finish, we'll just go back there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been really good fun.
No, it has. You guys can obviously follow Elodie on Instagram if you don't already. It's Elodie Harper, I want to say. She's always, you're quite active. You're one of the authors that are quite connected with the old readers, which we really appreciate. So thank you very much for that. Guys, make sure to follow myself, Charlie Author, on IG as well, where you can get all your updates about upcoming and previous Books and Shit episodes. We've got some good stuff coming up. I've got a live stream in a few weeks, which is going to be awesome. We're going to be discussing Black fiction. And just to let you know, Wolves of Duty is going to be out March 2nd. What am I saying? Pre-orders are up now for $2.99. So make sure you check that out when you can. Link is in my bio. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.